What's up, everybody? It's Hotline League 161. I haven't been this enthusiastic for an episode of Hotline League in some time, and it's all because of the crazy games that we had this weekend. We're going to be talking about that throughout the whole episode. Nothing else. There's been no other news. Nothing has happened. Of course,
imports.
McDonald's.
Yeah, we're talking about the global economy on this episode. Okay. So first off, shout out to our sponsors, Alienware and Gamefil. They both power Hotline League, and we love them. We'll talk about more of them, or both of them, later on as we get further into the show. But first off, my constant co-host is here, Mark Zimmerman. How's it going?
It's going good.
I feel like you have a different angle than you normally do on the show.
I mean, maybe I have it more like this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, that's a lot.
Stop.
Okay.
Okay, good. We're good.
No crotch shots, please. But how you been, Mark? What's been going on with you?
Not much. Ashley just finished. There's working through the audiobook for the 4th Harry Potter book. It's really fucked up how Audible doesn't let you pick what narrator you want, and so they living in the U.S. they suggest Jim Dale, I think his name is. No, I don't know the guy. Maybe he's good, but he's just some crusty ass old sounding American dude, and I cannot believe that this is Hogwarts when there's some normal ass American guy. And so I had to try and find the Stephen Fry version, who, by the way, Stephen Fry is incredible. But you can't do that because apparently I live in the United States, so I had to go find some.
But I don't think it's Audible. I think that's probably the publishers, right? There's probably somebody who owns the rights in the UK and somebody who owns the rights in the US.
I mean, I'm not here to get into politics, Travis, all right? I'm just saying it's busted that I have to find some janky workaround to listen to Stephen Fry tell me about Harry Potter.
Wait, what's wrong with homegrown native narrators? What do you have against that, Mark?
Yeah. No, that's what I'm trying to get to the original.
Oh, you want an import?
I don't. Anyways, then I watched the movie tonight, and it's good. I know we don't like J.K. Rowling for very good reasons, but goddamn, is some of that stuff magical?
It's overrated. Anyway,
dude, do you want to open that can of worms, dude?
Right, look, I like Harry Potter, but I don't know. It's good for what it is, which is a mass market thing. But there's so much stuff in there. Mark, why don't they use the time turner just in the other books? That seems like such a great way to defeat people, is just flipping back time.
Yeah, sure. It's fucking incoherent as hell. It wasn't trying to be this insane thing.
Exactly. And it's not an insane thing.
You're going to go Mickey Mouse cartoons and be well, some of the logic here just doesn't hold up. It's children's book. I don't like how... Listen, man, it grew with its audience in a way that no series ever has and ever will again. It capitalized on the changes that you go through better than anything else. You connected to the readership
Twitch chat
better.
says Jim Dale is from England.
Well, I don't know. He sounded American.
Anyway... We've got That's Primal on as well. First time on the show. Welcome, That's Primal. Can I just call you Primal?
Just call me Primal, man.
Okay. I've known you for so long, and I'm just reteaching myself. Anyway, how you doing? How's your week been?
I'm doing fantastic. I don't know what kind of slander you were throwing at Harry Potter because I actually disconnected mid-statement. Okay. So you're still good in my book. I was actually considering just leaving when I heard those slanderous terms. But yeah, I'm doing fantastic, man.
Great.
It's good to be alive.
Yeah. So we have you on the show. I think Mark and I had talked about reaching out to you towards the start of the season when you joined the LCS broadcast. And because Mark and I are terrible at putting any effort into actually making the show good, despite the fact that it's the crown jewel of Travis Gafford Industries, we just hadn't reached out. And then this past week, I realized it was the perfect week to reach out to you because I know you did this. You mentioned this sort of at the very start on the very first day of lock-in, but a lot of people don't know your background. They're just he's just like a dude they brought onto the LCS broadcast. They don't know that you were formerly at Riot before leaving and now returning in this capacity. Do you want to explain a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I guess, it depends on how far back we want to go. Because I've changed my real name and my summoner name, gamer tag, whatever you want to call it.
I want to learn about wellplayed.org.
Yeah. Okay, so when I was in college, I got really into StarCraft 2 during the beta, and became pretty good at the game, but just also got really involved in the community. And I was a StarCraft subreddit moderator. Started organizing tournaments for fun, and those tournaments, for the time, they had great production value for online tournaments and good organization. Eventually made a company out of it called Well Played, and we produced tournaments for like MLG and IGN, and we did our own stuff. And from during Well Played, I transitioned from StarCraft into League of Legends. Just really, really fell in love with the game. When I graduated college, I interned actually at Riot right before I graduated. Went back to Riot, and then I was there at Riot for 7 years. Started off doing league operations, so disciplinary action, rules, tournament formats, analytics, that kind of stuff for North America and global. And then I transitioned into doing league ops for global, so just focused on like the overall global ecosystem, import rules, stuff that's we're going to talk more about today. And then I moved on to leading the events team, so I ran the international events, so MSI, Worlds, All Stars. Left Riot, this is a whole crazy journey. That's a whole another story. But left Riot to become a pro gamer in TFT because I was quite good at TFT. Did that for pretty much all of 2020, most of 2020, and was also a commentator. So I was a content creator and commentator for TFT. Commentated TFT Worlds. I guess Riot saw that. They liked what I did. They were like, hey, you want to go do LCS stuff? I was like, hell yeah, I want to do it. In terms of like actually playing the game, I was a high elo Hecarim one trick. I actually had like the most Hecarim games in the world at one time. It was actually a big problem. And then I started commentating for LCS on the analyst desk this year. So I'm in going into week 7 of that.
That is the path.
There's a very important question that Twitch chat's asking now. It's got me curious. How much have you fined from CLG?
Oh shit, man. Dude, I feel like I actually recused myself from CLG rulings because I was so biased. I literally have a CLG banner from the old LCS studio in my place. But definitely thousands.
I mean, it was all the Nick Allen, I think,
digits.
got
How many
digits?
Doing that.
5. How many digits?
Yeah, 5 digits.
No, I think it's 4. The fines were smaller back then, dude. Everyone was poorer, man. We couldn't go around handing out 5-digit fines.
That's true.
Bankrupt the league.
I mean, what's so funny now is, not to go too off topic before we get into stuff, is I've thought frequently about the challenge. Like, what do you do if you were still at Riot? How would you approach this? Because there are some teams that are paying either league minimum or close to league minimum for some of the players, which is 75 grand now, by the way, I believe. So it's like still a substantial amount of money, but and they're operating on a budget that is like a fraction of some of the budgets that the other teams are operating on. You have players like Niles got fined, I think, $1,000. Like for Niles, I don't want to speculate on his personal finances, right? But that perhaps is a greater percentage of his situation than Sword Art, who's making millions. So, like, I'm actually kind of curious, what would you do in those situations where you have such huge variance and, like, the fines mean dramatically different things?
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, I would probably, without having thought about this at all, probably do something like a 2-layered fine where there's a base fine of, like, let's say for Niles' offense, it's $500. And then the rest scales off of how much you actually make a year. Yeah. Now, the tricky thing is I don't know if Riot actually has legal rights to do that because they don't pay the entirety of a player's salary, right? So what they can do is fine against the minimum. I don't know if Riot still guarantees the minimum and pays it themselves, but they might not have legal recourse to fine the entirety of someone's salary like a Perks or Jensen. But in an ideal world, that's what I would do.
I would also give them the option to forego the fine and appear on Hotline League.
The player could come on Hotline League instead.
Yeah, they could dodge the fine if they came on Hotline.
We would definitely be getting a lot of the newer players to the league that way. That I think perhaps some of the long-standing stars. Anyway, so
what a punishment.
It's like community service, you know.
Yes. Everyone's like, "I'll pay the fine, dude. No fucking way. Make me sit down with Travis and Mark for 2 hours."
It's true. I mean, there are. I have heard. So I have not seen this, but I have heard, and it must not be on this. They must not have done it this year because I've gotten a chart. I've asked Riot for the the fines to date for this year. But I've heard in the past teams that just eat the fines on media stuff because there are required media, like you have to do so many interviews or something like that. And sometimes teams will be like, we don't want to do the interviews, and they'll just eat the fine, which I think is kind of funny. So whatever. Anyway, so before we get to the spicy stuff or like the biggest story, what news happened last week that wasn't related to the import rule as it is? Obviously this weekend I feel like we had some really crazy spicy games.
Well, Golden Guardians popped off that one game.
For 56 minutes, they popped off.
That
It was a long, drawn out.
Off.
Broxus showed up. That's a good one.
Broxus showed up, which I think is pretty cool. We had the Golden Guardians thing, which I think was also pretty fun. There was a Reddit thread that caught this. I didn't even realize this, but and I don't know if it ever got very far. I saw it like late last night when I was going to sleep. Basically saying that we now have a cycle of suck, where where you can create a chain of teams that have beaten each other, which is I think a fun thing to have happened right at the point in the tournament, or right in the point in the league where everybody's played each other once.
Damn, dude, we're calling that a cycle of suck?
Yeah. It's apparently a term. It's apparently a term from traditional sports. Mark,
Really?
have you heard this term?
I've heard it before. It usually is a lot harder to complete in traditional sports where there's like 30 teams and divisions and conferences and stuff like that. So it's not that. I feel like every split at some point you get a circle of suck in League, but I don't think it usually happens like round one or first round robin.
Oh, maybe I was saying cycle. I think I meant circle. Either way.
Cycle of suck. That's just...
Yeah. Well, so the reason I said that was because that's actually the term that the Golden Guardians head of esports Hunter used whenever he was talking about the import rule, where he's like, he feels like a lot of this is part of the cycle of suck, where NA loses. So whatever.
Wait, just to be clear, is it circle of suck? What's happening? Oh, circle of suck.
So what has happened
we should not be putting that term out there.
Everyone beating each other is the circle of suck.
Let's stop talking about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a traditional sports term. I didn't invent it.
Really?
Good.
I'm not gonna Google circle of suck right now.
Okay, I'm googling it
to verify. So I'm just taking your word for it.
History of circle sucking.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, you know what? I'll put the link in the Twitch chat so that I'm vindicated on this exactly. Yeah, 2.5K upvotes. Okay, this went far. So that happened. But man, it's hard to think of too many other things. Broxa came in. Peter Dunn. I mean, less like hype or whatever than a player visibly being on the broadcast. But Peter Dunn, who is EG's coach, that was, I think, people were really excited to have him come to the. He's now here as well. He had a bunch of visa issues, and I think most of that, like, there was some news abroad, but a lot of it was obviously the import stuff, and so that. Clearly, having Primal on this episode is, I think, part of the reason why it's great. It's great to have him on, is because we're covering that stuff and talking about it. So, I don't know. Should we just dive into it?
Yeah. Do you want me to do callers, or do you want to do a little of us first and then into callers?
Let's do a little of us first, and then callers.
Okay. I mean, at least for me, I feel like we talked about it a fair amount last week.
Yeah. So rather than talking about, hey, we think that this, like... well, first off, why don't we get Primal's take? Because Primal, I know you've had some tweets, but people might not know your stance. So it'd be cool to hear from you, especially given your background.
Yeah. So just for context, what Travis is talking about is I actually wrote the original rule, in 2014, and wrote the updates to the rule in 2016 before I left Riot. So I was super passionate about this when I started at Riot, especially because I'd come from the StarCraft scene and I'd seen what happened there. So I think the problem with this whole conversation is that it's not being presented with any nuance, right? And B, we're really fixated on just North America. I think the first thing we have to recognize is this is a global rule, right? It's a global rule with regional implementations. So even if team owners wanted to lift the import rule, and I'm not saying they want to completely lift it, we'll get to the nuance of what it seems like they're saying in a second, they could not just lift it in North America and everything else remains fixed, right? So let's say you abolish the import rule, NA teams can have 5 imports. That means China can have 5 imports. That means Brazil can have 5 imports. That means EU can have 5 imports. So it's already kind of complicated, right? Because if the assumption is that lifting the rule will make NA competitive or more competitive relative to other regions, we have to recognize that every other region is getting that quote-unquote advantage. Right?
I mean, theoretically, Riot could do whatever they want, right? They could lift the import rule for North America and not lift it for the other regions.
They could, but in reality, just knowing how team owners interact with the league, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine.
I'm not saying there's any chance Carlos would ever let that happen, to be clear, but like,
yeah,
I'm just saying it is true that like there's no like legal reason why
Riot is judge, jury, and executioner here.
Right.
They can do whatever they want, technically.
True, they could do whatever they want. I would be hard pressed to conceive of a reality where NA gets to do this and other regions don't get to do it. But yeah, in theory, they could all do it. But I think one of the nuances that's being lost is, first of all, I think team owners are being painted as like the great Satan here. Like, oh, they don't care about North American talent. Oh, they don't care about anything but their bottom line. But we should recognize team owners are incentivized to have the league be as popular as possible, right? And a component of that is certainly who the players are, right? And do the fans have an affinity for them? Now, the affinity come from a number of reasons. Shared nationality is one of them, right? So I think the question is not like why do the team owners like dislike North American talent or why are they against us? It's less of that. I think the more interesting question is what is leading them to believe that having a league that potentially has more imports than we have now is actually a more fun experience for fans and is actually better long term. Now, one argument I could hear, and I haven't heard any like team owner make a really comprehensive argument, so it's really hard to refute. But one argument I could at least conceive of that could maybe make sense is that they think, hey, North America having more imports means better performance at international events, meaning equals more fans wanting to watch the LCS long term. That's an argument that would need to be supported by data on like, hey, why do fans watch the league? What potential fans are we missing out on? But I think the problem here is that that argument is not being presented. Like what we're seeing is comments from like Jack and Regi on like Reddit and Twitter that are just like not great looks for either of them. And of course, we're having these discussions in like 280 characters on Twitter, right? So you're not going to get much nuance.
Well, I mean, there were statements. I mean, to be fair to the team owners again, because I agree with you, by the way, and like I don't want people to think. I hope that no one has perceived what I have done in promoting this issue as saying like the team owners want to ruin the league. It's more just like I'm trying to elevate the conversation around it so that people know what's going on, and also give them like in asking them those questions last week, it was also to give them a platform to sort of explain their philosophy. Setting that aside, it does what Jack and Steve and Parth, speaking presumably on behalf of TSM, said was that they did feel like they wanted to find like this would allow them to have more success. So they do seem to kind of like corroborate your argument, right? Which is like, or the argument you're making right now, which is that this will lead to more success.
Right, but I think the point that Primal's making, which is one that I actually do think you could have merit for if anyone wanted to just say it, which is like the North American scene's viewership is generally not trending up. It seems like it's trending down. And you could say, we think that's because of international performance or something. And this is better than the alternative of maybe you think that you're never going to win. And I think there's plenty to say like, well, get better at developing talent yourself or these other things. Like I think there's a more nuanced conversation there, but I haven't heard anyone say like, we're concerned about the league's longevity if we're unable to actually compete. And they haven't said that. They've said they'll make them more competitive, but that could just mean that you're better. Doesn't mean that you're actually concerned about viewership.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity that they're missing out on is one to make an argument from like a standpoint that actually would appeal to fans. And I've pissed Travis off so much that he's left, so I'm gonna keep going though.
I was just turning my light on. So
whenever one of us leave, you just keep going.
What I think a more nuanced argument actually is if you look at the policy, right? So in 2014, the policy was, hey, if you're here for 2 years, regardless of where you come from, you will eventually become an NA resident. Now, when I was at Riot, we changed it from 2 to 4 years for people who were already there before 2016, basically. And for anyone who came after a certain period of time, you had to have some sort of permanent resident status, right? So you had this class of guys who came in before this deadline, right? Who just had to wait a little
I think,
longer.
is an example.
Yeah, people like Santorin, I think Svenskeren at the time, Impact, Jensen, etc. And then you had everyone else who now had to be like a citizen, for example, right? Now the problem is there's only 6 of these people who you can consider like naturalized, right? So the Santorins, the Huhis, Impact, Sven, Jensen, I think Huni, right? And when those guys retire, there's no more people who are coming in who are naturalizing from just staying in the region, right? So one argument the team owners can make is, hey, look, eventually, like these guys like Impact and Jensen, like maybe on a 5-year time horizon, they're going to start to retire. And that's like a group of elite players who are actually not going to be replacing with new talent that doesn't take up an import slot. Like that's an argument I could actually hear and say, okay, at minimum, we need to maintain the level of the league by creating some sort of path for imports who feel like they're part of NA, like, Impact and Jensen, these people like feel like NA players, to create more of those. But we don't really have that right now, right? Because you have to be a citizen. So unless, like, I don't know, CoreJJ becomes a citizen, and that's like really hard in America. I don't know how it is in Canada. There is an argument to be made that right now the rule at least requires a little bit more nuance and requires a path to naturalization and resident status.
Don't you just need a green card, which is different than? I'm not a lawyer, so but my understanding is you just need a green card, which I don't think is the same as having a citizenship. It's having being like it's a resident status. I think within the U.S. is I think what the new rule is.
Yeah, it's permanent resident status. Now, yeah. I don't know specifically if NA considers green card permanent resident status, and I'm also not sure how hard it is to get a green card, right?
Yeah. Either way, to Kaizen's point, and it from what I see from fan sentiment generally, the idea of naturalizing or becoming resident, whatever, fans seem open to that. People like Someday, who have been here now for 3 years. It looks like he's going to be here for, based off his contract, a couple more at least. Like, at that point, we're talking getting close to half Someday's career is in North America. And, I think for a lot of fans, they probably warm up to him pretty quickly and stuff. So, I think to that point, if there's a way to increase the number of imports, but it's through, this means, I don't think fans are as worried about that. I don't think people complain about, I haven't heard any fans complain about Team Liquid, despite being 4 out of 5, quote unquote, non-natural.
EU fans throw it in our face whenever TL performs, and they go, well, listen, there's 4, whatever. But I don't think NA fans care. I think we're proud to have CoreJJ, Jensen, those types of players who
right. And Santorin, I think, yeah. And that's what is more important to me, is not that someone can put us down for using imports, but that fans can connect with them and feel like they're part of the community.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with NA's brand being like, hey, we're an international melting pot, right? And we have straight up imports, people who so godlike player from Korea. We have guys who have came from another region but have been here for 5 years or whatever, the Sundays of the world, and they feel like NA players, and also people who are just straight up NA, they aren't citizens or whatever, and they started in the league. I think finding the right mix of that should be the conversation, as opposed to no import rule versus import rule, right? But even all this aside, we do have to recognize that Riot is judge, jury, executioner on these matters. But probably what's eventually going to happen is whatever change happens in NA has to happen globally. I don't see a world where NA gets to just move unilaterally. So I think what the owners have to reckon with in NA is, hey, okay, if this change happened globally, would we actually be getting an advantage from this, or would it actually would all the elite Korean players just go to China, right? And they're real scenarios we can draw on. I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was in 2016. This team, the Samsung Red, was rumored to be put together. It was Huni mid and Gamsu top, and this roster of 5 Korean players that was supposed to go to EU or NA.
There was who was wasn't Mad Life supposed to come over at some point? Was he part of that team, or maybe it was a separate one? But
it might have been a separate team. But there were legit 5 import teams that were gonna be coming over, and that's not it, right? Like, no, I don't think anyone.
Now this was before
that.
franchising, to be clear. So it's not like
True.
that. You could Samsung or SKT couldn't just go send like a sister team to LCS now unless they bought one of the slots or something. And obviously there's restrictions around ownership and whatever. But to your point, there are real scenarios where you could have.
I mean, those 5 players get together and approach a team owner and say, "Does anyone want us?" You know, like some team owner is going to spend on that.
Yeah,
sure, for sure. So I think we definitely need some sort of protection against that. But I can also see the argument that, hey, we need some way, at least a naturalization path that is more reasonable. Like, you know, Travis, you mentioned you can just get a green card. Like, I don't know the implications of getting a green card. Like, why hasn't somebody gotten a green card then?
I think they've been working on it. People have been saying they've been working on it, so it might happen here. So I've heard mixed things here. So like Empire, who's in the chat, he has said that it's much easier to get a green card, and I've heard that recently too. Is that whatever in the U.S. for whatever reason lately it's been easier to get a green card, but I don't know. It's interesting because we might see a lot of it this year, and it might not, and then it might, this whole conversation might kind of fizzle out because maybe it's actually easier to get a green card. And theoretically, if you can get a green card in less than 4 years, you actually have a path to being a resident in North America faster than you did underneath the rule that system replaced, right?
Yeah, and I would also say that, you know, there's going to be probably some riot stuff too. Like, you can't just keep flip-flopping your residency. So I don't think, you know, like, if you get a green card to North America, you can't go like, sick, I'll sit here for a little bit. Maybe I'll dip back to Korea. Maybe I'll go, you know, like, I think there's probably a limit on the amount of times that you could do something like that. I would hope in Riot's rulebook, if they do make an easier path to naturalization, that like people aren't just, I'm in 4 different, I'm at 4 different regions. I'm a citizen to all 4 of them.
Yeah.
Because like Crown has played Brazil, he played EU, NA, he played, and same with Core JJ. They've played all over the world, some of these guys, and same with Ole and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, in the rules, it says you can only be a league resident of 1 league at a time. So I think that part is at least covered. I mean, I actually wonder, hearing about this green card being easy to get, I don't know what the definition of easy is. Like, is that actually a loophole that's going to get exploited by teams? Right?
Eventually.
Like, you know, it's like mail order brides. You know, you like bring over this group. I mean, of dudes and like
if you think about it,
Americans and like, I don't know.
Well, if you think about it, if you think that a talent, like if you're a team owner, and you think a talent is very valuable, like you're pulling somebody over who's like a former world champion or something like that, your best strategy, assuming you can get a green card quickly, is to sign them to a 3-year deal, immediately start working on their green card the moment that you sign that deal, and then get them as a resident so that they can either stay on your roster, or suddenly you have under contract a player who's like amazing, is a, you know, imported player who now doesn't take an import slot, has a green card, that now you can flip that player's contract for quite a bit potentially if you wanted to. So I'm very interested. Like that is part of the reason I've enjoyed this conversation, is because I do think it is bringing up broader topics. Like, we won't even talk about this probably on this episode, but Carlos is out on Twitter and other people from LEC, I think Ben Spoon, saying that North America and EU should merge into 1 league. And there's like a whole conversation to be had there. There's conversations around how the green card system works. Like, the thing that I am enjoying about this conversation, whenever it becomes as nuanced as we're having right now, is that you actually it does bring up a bunch of interesting conversations about, you know, the nature of talent within North America, how to solve it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So. And I think like what I would love to see from the community is some sort of consensus around what does a sufficiently NA league look like? You know, is it, you know, for example, is it 2 imports, right? So people like straight up coming from like China or Korea and EU, and then 1 person who is a naturalized resident, so someone who's been here for a while but they started somewhere else, and then 2 people who are native to the US, Canada, and OC. Like, I don't know. And I think the answer is a little bit different for everyone, but I think that would be a healthy conversation to have, like between actually Riot, the team owners, and the community. The more that the team owners can actually build consensus with the community and, you know, sound like they're actually listening, right, and have interests aligned, I think the better a state we can get to.
That has been my frustration on this, is like, it is actually so hard to have a dialogue around this. Like, I would love to, and I think Mark, you and I had talked about this a little bit, host like a roundtable discussion with multiple owners, somebody from Riot, like have a broader conversation about this rather than have it be this thing where you've got like owners who in a lot of cases feel like they're dodging the question or don't want to like exactly say what it is that's going on. Riot has been just like absolutely silent on all this stuff. I'm not trying to like call people out or whatever, but it is disappointing to me that it feels we can't have like an open, transparent conversation around it. And instead, it's everyone just like, you know, it's Dignitas deleting tweets and Regi saying imports, and like all this kind of weird stuff that spawned out of it. So I had a GM message me, and I had somebody message me who was a GM for one of the teams and say like, hey, I'd love if you could get the owners into like an actual conversation around this stuff. I think it'd be good. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do that. But I can't, like, I can't, nobody wants to do this, you know? So.
Yeah. But what do you guys make of, I do think something that is kind of glossed over a little bit is the global impact of this, right? So if we just at least take it as a given for at least the sake of argument that whatever is done in NA will get mirrored in other regions. I don't know if it's immediately. I don't know if it's on a longer timeline. So like, do you guys think there's even an advantage to North America if this becomes a global change?
Well, here's something Kelsey Moser pointed out on Twitter that I think you saw too and maybe retweeted.
The LPL salary caps.
LPL has a salary cap. Now, it's kind of convoluted. It's not like, from what I understand from talking to her, it's like complicated where there's like a soft cap, hard cap, some exceptions or whatever. But in a world where North America does not have a salary cap because there's no way to legally do that, we could potentially spend more to bring players over and potentially beat out LPL teams on building out these rosters and grabbing talent. And that's where it does get kind of weird on a balance, where like now suddenly we have more capital to build these types of big teams than the LPL does.
Exactly.
I think it really depends on the implementation, because if it's like a no hold bars, totally lifted kind of thing, I think that'd be disastrous for every league. I don't think it actually benefits anyone. Like we talk a lot about connection from fans to players in North America, but for regions like EU and Korea, you're just going to get weaker straight up. Like your talent's coming over here, it's going to China for Korea and stuff. Like you're not going to see as many hype matchups domestically, and you'll have to wait to get them at international competition. And even then, like it's just going to be, for at least for North America, probably full KR matchup versus full KR matchup that you would have been seeing if the rules stayed the same a couple times a year in Korea. Now you're seeing it once a year internationally. I think it would not actually be any better if it's fully floodgates open, and anything else requires like kind of knowledge. Like, well, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
I do. Oh, go ahead if you want to have a final point, Primal.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I mean, so at minimum right now, what we kind of have is an equilibrium globally where, okay, even in China, like they have some Korean players, like you have like the rookies who, from what I understand, is like popular in China. Did I say Korea? Koreans in China who feel like they're part of a local culture, who are accepted. You have a good mix of the Sunskarians and Jensens and Impacts and NA. You have like the Jose Diodos coming from South America. So right now there is an equilibrium, but I think going forward in the future, like what I can see from the owner's perspective is that a lot of these naturalized guys are gonna leave. And unless there's some like green card path that's like pretty reasonable and can help replenish this group once they all retire, like NA is going to start to trend downward relative to some of these regions. So that is a problem that needs to be tackled. But I don't think maybe there's a few team owners who are extremists and like we should just have no import rule. I think that's like a really awful idea personally. But there should be a clearer path at minimum.
And one thing I'll say too with the conversation, the fact that there's been not super good clarity from the team owners about what each of their stances are, it makes it kind of easy to assume the worst, I think, for a lot of the community. And it's on the one hand, it's like, well, if you don't think it's full dissolving, then why are you not saying what you think it should be? And there hasn't been really anything put forward that's like super specific of like, hey, I think it should be this. And so it makes it really hard to engage with the team owners who feel like they haven't really given what their vision is, other than, well, let's start a conversation. And then they don't really offer what they want. And then when you do get them talking, they're like insulting the players in their own league. Like that's another angle to talk about. Like the players, I assume, are not happy. Like the McDonald's memes, it's kind of like haha, but it's also like, man, fuck you guys. I think there's like an undercurrent of it in the feeling. And like if TSM's owner, is talking to a C9 player who's arguably the best resident support in the league, it's like, wow, this is not a healthy conversation right now, guys.
Absolutely not.
So Mark, I don't know if I do want to talk about the player stuff. I don't know if we're going to have a caller about it. So if you do see any callers, maybe it'd be good to talk about it, because I've had an interesting interaction trying to get a statement out of the Players Association. But if you do see that, that's cool. I'm going to let you. Let's do this. You start pulling folks for the calls.
I have indeed. It's been an active night in Discord already, so I don't think we need the prompt.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to say we need instructions or anything like that. I do want to address one thing, though, because I see somebody named Postmodernism in the chat talking about, like, is this even a thing? Is there any kind of concern around this? Or is Travis just manufacturing it? Now, I made a video that went up right before this that I think is quite well crafted, because I had an editor in Sweden work on it overnight. Sort of talking about the mechanics of this, how this works internally with the politics around the NA team, the global team, how Riot has to convince folks. I tried to get Postmodernism to watch it, and he said he wouldn't want to be clickbaited again. So I guess I just have to explain it here. So here is why. There's a couple things here. One, I just want to address the people out there that are saying, like, I'm clickbaiting this or I'm trying to do this. I am not. The videos that I am making are not getting like crazy views on this. I'm going to lose money on that video that I made last night. Like, this is kind of a niche topic. I think it should be broadly known, but it is kind of a niche topic. I'm not benefiting a ton from this. In fact, this is I would argue, damaging to my relationship with the owners who provide me with access to their players. So I do not politically benefit from this. I do not financially benefit from this. The reason I am doing this is a couple reasons. One, I don't think that Riot is likely to do this, but their silence has been deafening on it, which is why I've been kind of following up on it. I explained in that video that, like, there was an owners meeting with the owners after this thing had been submitted back in the beginning of February, and clearly this conversation would have come up at that owners meeting, and yet they must not have had the owners get shut down, because the owners are still out there acting as if this is like an active conversation or something that could happen. So that is why I'm concerned about it, because it does seem as though like Riot has not shut it down. And then the other reason is, let's say none of this happens. Maybe I am just like crazy and there's no chances it's going to happen, and Riot's already told them, and for some reason the owners are doing this. It is still very crazy that we have a situation where owners just do not seemingly believe we can actually succeed internationally unless we can bring in more presumably talent. 5 players from another region, right? They're looking, some of the players or team owners think that we should just abolish the rule entirely, and you should be able to bring in 5 players from another region. So I think that in and of itself is a story. So look, I've said this previously, you can unsubscribe from my channel, you can unfollow me on Twitter, whatever, but like I think this is important, and that is why I am doing it, not because I'm gonna get massive money and a bunch of clicks and stuff. I've seen some people subtweeting me on Twitter. It's just really bizarre the way people perceive things these days. Okay.
Can I just say, like, yeah. If let's say we lift this import rule and you bring in like 5 Koreans or whatever, and they win Worlds, does that victory actually feel good? Like, who does that feel good to?
Mark and I talked about this. It's just, it does not feel.
It's like it's such a hollow victory.
Yeah.
We talked about it on the dive today too, which is coming out tomorrow at 5 a.m. About how, like, the Kobe emotional, like, crying, like, thing, as C9 is making semis or whatever, like, and like the I never doubted, like those things, like, you just won't have that emotional connection that you have like right now. Like the Kobe crying thing just does not happen if Downbon comes over next year and wins,
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So before we get into the first caller, I would just say, as I've said this whole time, I would love to have a broader conversation with people at Riot about this, or the team owners. I would love to do any of this. Please it's killing me that like it's weird, this weird thing. And by the way, some people just want me to shut up about it. That's how things if we all just shut up about it, then what? Okay, sorry, never mind. I can't talk. Mark, you want to go grab our first caller, who perhaps could be the person that I pulled into that chat room first?
Okay, sure. That seems why don't you? Okay.
Well, just because they've been waiting, whatever. Anyway, Fudge, subscribe. Thank you. Zachary GG, thank you for the Prime. Shuval, I love you, chat, for 38 months. Big Angry Hobo for 32 months. Parker James, Capone Slugger, Retro TP, On the Hook, Darth Zombie, Easy Stay Safe. We'll get to the others later on, but there's more of you. Thank you guys so much. All right, Primal. For our very first guest, I've brought someone from your past onto the show.
It's your ex.
Oh, no. I'm sorry, baby.
Oaksilk, where are you calling from?
I am normally in LA, but I'm currently in Atlanta.
We're currently in Atlanta. Do you want to explain your relation to Primal and Riot and all of this stuff?
Yeah, so I joined Riot back in 2014 and worked with Primal Kaizen for about 3 years. I worked on the NALCS, and Primal worked primarily on global, but there was a fair amount of overlap. And so, yeah, I was actually in the room, so to speak, when we were putting together the import rule. And then as we had to iterate on it, as there were sort of like loopholes and concerns, just part of the normal evolution of the rules. So, but after I left Riot, I kind of transitioned more into the business side of the industry, where I've been for a minute. So actually, what I kind of wanted to call in about, and Travis actually tapped me about this and was like, hey, I think this might be an interesting conversation tonight. I kind of wanted to present to you guys what I think is happening with a little bit more of a business lens. I think a lot of the conversation sensibly has been focused on the product lens, what's best for winning, what does it mean for the region, but I actually think there's potentially some business reasons, both for why Travis is like getting an infuriating wall of silence, but also why owners would prefer to kind of look this up. So yeah, I can kind of jump into it.
Yeah. Well, but first do you think Primal is a better caster or League Ops person?
Was Michelangelo a better sculptor or painter? I mean, how do you? It just depends how much.
What a great guest.
Anyway. So
I think we go with Painter as well.
Painter was
what is the guy's name? Bernoulli, but whatever he was.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Guy?
By the way, are we going with Oaksilk, or can I call you by your?
You can call me Ovi or Oaksilk.
Okay,
either
Ovi.
fine.
Yes. And for those, just as a full disclosure, Ovi works at an agency that helps me with some deals. I don't work with Ovi directly and anything like that, but I just want to call it out. Anyway, so Ovi, what do you think is going on here?
Yeah. Okay. So at the very top, I'll just say high level. So I am about to explain what I think is happening, but I want to say at the front end that I think eliminating the import rule altogether, I completely agree, would be like probably a pretty bad idea. Although I think owners probably understand a lot of these downsides, which I think to me is interesting because it means that the pros must weigh so heavily that they're willing to opt into the risk of like massive backlash and just kind of all the negative sentiment we've seen around it. But I would also echo at the front end that like this is, to your point, Travis, like Riot hasn't shot this down, so this isn't dead on arrival. But like if folks remember back in 2014 when we first put together the import rule, if people remember the first Korean exodus where, China, was it the LPL back then? I still think it was the LPL back then.
I think
the
it
LPL.
was.
Yeah, but it wasn't LCK at the time. Was it still Champions?
Champions. I think.
Yeah, well, this is a long time ago, obviously. But regardless, Korean Pro League of Legends was sort of raided by Chinese teams, and it sort of resulted in this like massive disruption. And I think the LCK or Champions at the time and the fan base were super against it. So I think the notion that this is all about what the NA owners want is almost certainly not the case. And I think there are actually some regions who are. I can't necessarily speak to if things have changed too much, but I got to imagine particularly Korea, like some regions are maybe as fervently against this as any would be for it. So I think this might just be an intellectual exercise, but Riot hasn't shut down speculation, so I think it's fair game. So here's kind of what I think is happening. So the first thing is just like macro. Obviously, team owners, this is their business. Part of their livelihood is understanding the community sentiment, and they are like opting into a lot of silence and a lot of sort of like heat from the community. So my assumption is, I'll like kind of lay it out for you guys, and I'm really curious what you guys think of this. But my assumption is basically that a lot of this kind of boils down to like fundamental discomfort and unhappiness with the state of the league right now by the owners, both in terms of, and some of this actually comes from, there's a great supercut. Travis, I don't remember if you're the one that put it together, but someone supercut all 10 LCS owners' answers to your questions on LCS Media Day. Yeah. That was fascinating to me as someone that has like listened to and watched a lot of Corpo speak. I think there's some interesting tidbits that you can kind of read between the lines from some of the answers. But for me, at least, it kind of boiled down. It seemed like there were some fundamental problems with the league, but my guess is that they don't necessarily want to talk about those publicly without kind of setting off an LCS's dying type narrative. And so they'd rather kind of figure out what they want to do and then come with something more polished. So anyways, here's kind of the three things that I think.
Go, over, yes.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so first thing. In particular, I think Team Liquid's answer kind of spoke to this, but my read is that actually team owners are, when they initially sort of reached out to both investors, but then also to sponsors, right? The way that they pitched the LCS is that it is sort of like the premier flagship esports league, right? It is like League of Legends league. It is, it is, it was the first league that Riot put together. It's got, it's native to Riot's HQ. It has the biggest personalities. That may or may not be true, but regardless, right? Like we're talking about what's in a sponsorship deck or an investment pitch. But I think as we've seen year over year, like I think Hunter actually kind of talked about this the other day, there's been so many, you can only get bamboozled so many times in a row before you begin to think to yourself, now wait a minute, is it possible that this is not actually the greatest and best league? And so I think my guess is that team owners, in order to be opting into all this heat, are probably taking either heat from their investors or from sponsors that like, hey, this is not what we were sold. This is not the Dallas Cowboys of esports. This is more like, I don't know about a second tier league per se. I think that's maybe harsh, but North America is not in serious contention for a world title. And I think whether it's investors or sponsors, particularly based on Liquid's answers, my guess is that is a material concern. I'm also not sure how you talk about that to the fan base in a way that doesn't sound like LCS is dying or that you're kind of
to shorten it. So to kind of sum it together, Ovi, it sounds like you're saying the owners thought that this was going to be like the coolest, best, awesome league, and what they got, or sorry, like the investors, and then what they got instead was us going to groups, flopping every time, and things not looking so hot.
And it may well be the sponsors as well. I don't have a strong opinion on which of the two, but I'm pretty sure it comes from one of those two constituencies. But that is the thought. I'm curious what you guys think. I have two other points, but I think that's kind of the first one. Like, does that resonate with you guys? And if it does or doesn't, how do you really talk about that with the community in a way that doesn't kind of feed an LCS's dying narrative? Because given the choice between saying what I just said out loud and just keeping quiet, I can understand the temptation to just kind of want to ride this out.
I mean, I think what I like about your take is that I've seen a couple people say this here and there in different ways, right? Which is like the investors are getting tired of, investors or sponsors are getting tired of spending a lot of money in some cases to not bring about any results. And I think that is perhaps very interesting here. And that is perhaps, as you said, like a reason why the owners and folks are dodging this question so much or are afraid to kind of address it. I'm kind of curious, Mark and Primal, what you guys think.
I mean, my first reaction would be possibly. I mean, we kind of even said as much tonight. We focus more on the viewership angle than the ability to acquire top tier sponsors because they'll go to EU or
That's
whatever.
my second point, but I think that's slightly different, but yes.
Yeah, I think it is slightly different, but it's a similar idea that like It's a doom and gloom scenario that's motivating you to want to shake things up, to try and find another option because it's unsustainable as it is. I mean, you have to be careful, like you're saying, how you present these points, but I think people know NA sucks. Like we have these conversations every year already, maybe less on the viewership angle or the inability to acquire sponsors, but at least on a competing level, like how many years now have we, it's like been a couple, we haven't gotten out of groups. We've only gotten one team out for a long time. Since 2018, like that was the big year where a bunch of cool stuff happened. But like, I don't think the fan base is so disconnected from the this North American scene that they wouldn't understand this a little bit, you know?
So let me throw one little fun thing out here. So I've not posted these press conferences yet. I need to, but in 2 of the press conferences, I asked, it was the Immortals and the CLG press conferences, I asked why it was that Riot, the team owners, and Endeavor were unable to secure a media rights deal for the broadcast, because last year Riot confirmed that they were seeking a broadcast deal potentially exclusive with Twitch or YouTube. Seemingly that did not come about, and I think you can kind of read between the lines on some of their answers. They mostly dodged it, to be clear, but like it seems like that did not come about, given the fact that we are not on an exclusive platform, and I've heard that this did not end up happening. So I wonder how much of this is also linked to that, right? Like if you thought you were going to buy into this league, the league can't lock in a media rights deal to secure a large source of revenue for the league, and the league is also just failing every time it goes internationally, and viewership does not feel like it's growing. It seems like from the outside that it's kind of dipping, but when you're adding 50% more games, it's hard to tell what that looks like, so I'm not ready to say whatever. But like, certainly we're not sitting at 1 million viewers, and LEC is kicking our ass. Is there a world where a lot of this is born out of the pressure that you're kind of talking about? Primal, it looks like you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking. So I think there's a few levels to this. To Ovi's point, there are incentives and pressures that team owners are subject to that might not be visible to the public, right? So it may be that they've sold investors on, hey, this is a sports league and a franchise within the sports league that is going to be competitive internationally and do well, right? If that's the case, like I don't know if they misled their investors on like the prospects of them winning worlds, because I just don't know how you could make that pitch to an investor at all. I would imagine that there's something more of a comprehensive pitch about, hey, this is an extremely popular sports league with an extremely popular brand within the sports league, and the league is growing and it's accumulating viewers. And if that's the case, like, I think the investment thesis is bearing out to an extent. Like, as I understand it, and maybe this was just a press release, last year's Summer Split was supposed to be the most watched since 2016, right? It was supposed to be a huge increase in total hours watched. Now, again, Riot's incentive is always to present the rosiest picture of things. But irrespective of like what we're being exposed to publicly, I don't think the conversation between owners and the community changes, right? Either they care about, at the bottom line, they have to care about the health of the league. We're interpreting it as viewership. To Ovi's point, maybe they're interpreting it as competitive results. I would guess that it's a bit more important to have a league that's viewed a lot than a league that is successful competitively.
Yep.
Primal, I think you underestimate how much rich people want to feel like they own something that wins.
That's fair, and there may be some owners like who just like a billionaire who's just like, look, I just want a winning team. I don't care if you get 10 viewers a weekend.
Yeah.
But I imagine for a lot of them, like, there's an investment here, right? And the return on investment comes from having a popular team and a popular league. So I still think, again, at bottom, the conversation that the owners need to have with Riot and the community as well is about, hey, what do we think will produce the league that is most compelling and exciting for fans? And if they think it's just a league of like 5 Koreans who are winning world, I think they're mistaken. I don't think that's the view of even the plurality of them, but I don't know, and that's part of the problem, right? We don't even know what they're aiming to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. To be fair, there were 3 points, but I've been talking a fair bit, so I kind of want to run through each one. But yeah, I think that's right. Like, I think viewership is the second one. We can just feel like we're already halfway into it. Like, yeah, I think viewership probably as a metric matters more. Now, are we conflating unrelated things? Like, is changing the import rule going to change viewership? I don't know. Like, maybe that's a bit of a reach on my part, but I do think that if you're in a situation where the league is not in the healthiest state, and that's not something that you want to message publicly, then you probably are evaluating like a wide variety of options to deal with it. And this is potentially one of several things that the owners are discussing with Riot. I would be very surprised if this was the only or even the number one thing on the docket with Riot from the owner side. So it may just be that we're sort of seeing one piece of the picture and extrapolating that, this is most of the picture, and maybe it's actually quite a small part. Or,
well, Ovi, I need to get to work then. I appreciate you giving me that tip. Part of the reason I brought up the media rights thing is because I think that could be a factor too, right? Like, Empire in the chat said 4th year of franchising and we still don't have a media rights deal. Like, if you are an LCS team owner and you're like, well, I own this team that I have to spend a ton of money on, it loses, viewership is stagnant. LEC's like over there, like Shox and Dracos and Vedius are dancing, and all these people are watching it. It's amazing. And LCK is sick, and they're winning, and LPL's expanding
Mark
to
and
18.
I could dance.
Yeah,
that's all we need. That's
well, we haven't seen it yet. So I mean, but like everything else is popping off.
Talent, you guys best get to dancing next week on the broadcast.
Yes, but that's my point, right? Is like, if you're an LCS owner, what do you have to be excited about right now? And I think that's kind of where you're getting at, Ovi, is like, or if you're an LCS investor or an LCS sponsor, like, we don't have a great story to tell around the league right now because it doesn't feel like anything is popping off, especially when you compare it to all these international leagues. And so I think that perhaps you're right. Perhaps this is somewhat driven by desperation.
I mean,
okay, I did not say the word desperation.
You said the owners are desperate. They are grubbing for any kind of success. No, go ahead.
Oh my God.
I was gonna say, like, I think it's one of those things where I can see the angle, like, if you are feeling this way that you want to start these conversations, but like, it's not, again, propositioned like, hey, we want to look into ways that we can revitalize and rejuvenate the league's viewership. It sounds like a push to remove the import rule, which is, that's not the same thing, which is where I think I have my disconnect with it a little bit, because I don't know what metrics they have, but Travis and I, with our limited sample size, have polled a couple times, and it feels pretty decisively, 70-30 split. 70% of fans are not down with it.
Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No. That was pretty much just saying, like, it feels like we have data to say that this would hurt viewership, at least somewhat publicly.
Yeah, and I think my point, Ovi, I mean, I guess it would be interesting to understand, like, why would it matter, right? That, like, hey, they're receiving pressure from investors, because at the end of the day, the goal should be the same, right? Like, or at least the goal should be made clear. And it's not like they haven't been willing to communicate with the community about it. On the contrary, they've been communicating, some of them really shittily.
Well, some of them. Right? We can all think of at least one or two owners that are very vocal on this particular topic.
Yeah, but not, I mean, to even be fair, like Travis in those press conference interviews, they did give answers. Some of them were like kind of wishy-washy. Some of them were like, hey, look, I actually do want to change. I just don't know what the change should be. And I don't want a complete abolition of the rule. So it's not like, hey, they're being cagey around the fact that they're like they need some sort of change, irrespective of it's because they personally just want to win or if it's business considerations. The point is that the comms on this have been so poor, right, that it's really hard to get anywhere constructive in this conversation between the three different parties.
I agree with. Oh, sorry.
Ovi, I was just going to say we do need to run to other callers, but do you have? I know you said you had a third point. I don't know if you want to rush through it really quickly.
Yeah, I'll rush through it really quickly. So I think the final point. Sorry, let me just say one last thing very quickly on Primal's point, which is basically that, it may be that actually we're thinking about this a little too broad, and actually may be the case that, like, this is potentially the feedback that owners are getting from their general managers or other folks who are like, hey, it's been like, however many years. Performance at international events stagnant, if not going worse. Where's the development? Like, where's the scouting? And if if you are self-interested in whether it's keeping your job or painting the rosiest picture possible, the excuse is that it's the talent, it's the region. And to be fair, it's not entirely an unreasonable excuse. Like, the NA ranked region, I don't know that the numbers are public, but like people have said publicly, LCS owners, that our ranked population is much smaller than China, Korea, or Europe. So I don't think that's a totally unfair argument. The last point I would just make is that this is something owners absolutely don't want to say, but frankly, right, leverage over players, there's no way to really, I think, put that super well publicly, but I think there's an argument, not just in terms of like paying people less or more, because clearly there are teams that are willing to break the bank for imports. I don't think it's purely about cost savings. I think if we're being honest with, right, there's not a huge pool of players to choose from in North America, and I have heard, Travis, you're more connected to League than I am these days, so I think you're probably the best source on this. But like, it definitely seems like organizations feel like if they're having problems with a player who's talented, their hands are a little bit tied because there aren't exactly a ton of folks to replace them with, or there aren't exactly a ton of. I
think they usually just pull somebody from Academy and then sell them to TSM.
Maybe that's the answer to the question. I think you solved it.
Thanks so much, Ovi, for the call. I hear what you mean, though, which is like this does change the dynamic between the owners and the players and makes it so that they have a much broader pool of people, which is like something that's helpful for them both from a like, hey, I don't have to take the shit from a player who doesn't want to do the sponsor obligation, but also I can pay them less potentially. So, Ovi, anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
I am good. I apologize for my lack of brevity, not my superpower, y'all. But thanks for the call.
No, I appreciate it. And I enjoyed having you on because I knew that you would have a different perspective than some of our other callers. So, thank you.
Cheers.
See you, Ovi.
See ya.
All right.
Do you
We're
want
gonna take a quick break.
Okay.
What's that, Mark? You're
Nothing.
asking?
Yeah.
Shout out to Alienware. I know I shouted out them out last Wednesday, especially a lot of the folks that are in Austin right now. Sounds like a lot of them are getting things back in order, which I'm happy to hear. But really want to thank Alienware for their support of the show. I've seen a bunch of people tweeting stuff all the time at me for both my sponsors about going out and grabbing new desktops off their website, ordering all these things, tweeting them. I just want to reiterate again tonight, as I do so frequently, that actually really, really does help. I've heard from numerous people that work on this type of stuff that like other streamers, other teams, other people like that get sponsored. They don't have people like all of you listening to this, watching this, wherever, who will actually go through the effort to like tell a brand literally to their Twitter account that I was a factor in your decision to purchase that stuff. So thank you so much to everybody who does that. Please go check out their monitors, their desktops, their notebooks, their peripherals. Amazing stuff. Alienware.com/Travis. Use Travis10 off to save 10% on your order. Thank you to Alienware. Mark, you want to go grab our next caller?
Sure.
Thank you. Where are we? I think I got, maybe I didn't. Okay, Fudge, thank you for the sub. Jack Sandbox for the Prime. Cindablock. The Real Fox Shroud. Kyle0808 for 37 months. Azulis Noche. Lucentis. Wolvesl. Nivose. Porgol. D. Fitch gifted a sub. Beans. SSB Omelette. SSB Omelette. Purple Ray Q. Iron Vault Squab for 12 months, a whole year. Danny Grimm. Jadek. The Fritz. And Smoke Dog. We got Syndro here. Syndro, I think you've been on the show before, right? Several times? Syndro?
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Yeah. You've been on the show before, yeah?
I've not been on the show before.
Why do I recognize your name?
Book chat.
Book chat.
Oh, you're in the book chat on Discord. By the way, everybody join the Discord and hang out. We're building a decent community there, especially in the book channel. Well, welcome to the show, Syndro. Where are you from?
I'm from St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Minnesota. Well, what do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah. So my call revolves around the question of NA's relative strength to other regions and how the import rules affects it. So my take is removing import rules will not significantly improve NA's international success and will be the biggest blow to talent development in LCS history. Kind of a hot take. Kind of a big one here. So can I get into it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I feel like the teams, the owners specifically want this change to remove the import rules because they feel like it will improve the strength of our region, but I don't see the improvement being significant enough to justify the changes and the issues that it might present. And first, I think you need to look at who are we going to recruit. I mean this in general, as a general thing. In the discourse of this conversation, we've talked about it as like TSM is going to sign Dam1 and win the title for NA and that. But obviously, that's an exaggeration that we've been making as a community, and most likely, I don't see the LCS putting together an international powerhouse or of the region or just a team, because who's going to get recruited? Well, top players in China and Korea don't come to NA as much as they used to in the past. We have some exceptions lately. We've had Core JJ, and recently we've had Sword Art, and that's great. But in general, this is becoming kind of a rare thing that only the top teams with the most money can pull off. It's somewhat less true with EU, but clearly Caps and Reckless have resisted NA salaries to stay in their region. Remember that although Jack is championing this change somewhat, he's the one who couldn't bring Peanut to Cloud9. I cannot see top Korean Chinese players changing their minds just because in this post-restriction league that we can have 5 slots instead of 2. So our Chinese and Korean players going to subject themselves to low quality solo queue with high ping, all those things we talk about, as well as culture shock? I'd say probably not. So no, players of the top regions may very likely remain at home competing for their LCK titles. Others will stay in secondary leagues. Likely what will happen is the LCS will continue to get the occasional superstar, as we've kind of seen, and I mentioned earlier, who played their best games 2 years ago. I don't think CoreJJ played his best game 2 years ago, but there's some like we've seen Crown, we've seen other players like Crown,
right,
not working out. So clearly we can see that even if that sounds a lot less exciting than signing Damwon. So what I'm getting to is even yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. So I mean, were you just gonna say we're gonna be limited to like new talent or whatever?
And so to sum it up, I think we're going to be limited to largely players off of Korean solo queue, and also the occasional superstar that we are already getting. So that's the why it won't work.
So a lot of people in the chat are saying this is cold take. But it's funny because I actually very much disagree with you, which would imply that it's not a cold take. I think one of the reasons why, and I'll make my thing brief because I know Primal wants to talk. I think one of the reasons why Koreans won't come over, or LPL players won't come over, LCK or LPL players, I should say, won't come over, is because they have to go play with like North American talent. And as you said, there's also like the culture shock element. But if you can say, hey, awesome superstar from Korea, go find 4 other Korean players who are awesome, and your coach, and I'll hire a Korean GM and a Korean chef. Like, it's going to be a lot easier to get that player to come over. I think, and that's also one of the reasons why people have speculated that salaries would go down in this situation, because no offense to Lost, who has been playing amazing, but you don't have to pay Sword Art so much if he's not playing with Lost. Instead, he's playing with like a player that he's played with previously, or somebody who is like not as much of a fresh face. So
here's why I disagree with that, Travis. I think that if you take a team that was the best in Korea, or 5 players that were really, really good in Korea, you take away everything that makes them good in Korea, bring them to NA, they're probably going to perform a lot. They're not going to perform as well. Maybe you can convince them based on money, but are you gonna tell them to take the chance on not performing as well because of all the disadvantages we have here in NA? I think that would be the difficulty in bringing them over.
Oh, I agree. I don't think they would perform as well. I just think that they would tell themselves they will, and it'll work right.
Yeah.
All right. We got the pets on display. Yeah. Travis, where's yours? You have a.
He's in the other room right now, playing League, I think. Primal, I know, Mark, you were about to say something, but I feel like Primal was right about to say something.
Primal was even more about to say something than I was.
Yeah, I got some thoughts. Also, this is Uzi. Yeah, like the LPL player. He's my import.
He's retired. Okay.
So yeah, Syndro, thanks first of all for the point. It's clear that you really thought it out. I disagree. I think there's a few reasons why. So there's a market dynamics question. I think actually a lot of, although maybe at the top end, Korean players do get paid more. So like the Fakers and like the Chovies and people like this are just priced higher by the market. I'm pretty sure for a lot of the more average to like median type guys, they're actually not making more than they would make in NA. And I think I was actually shocked when I found out that Korean player salaries are like actually quite low in some cases, like as low as like 30K US on some like pretty good teams. So there's a lot more money in NA for some of these players, and I think it's really appealing. And I think to the second point that Travis was alluding to, a lot of these superstars, they don't want to come over and be like one Korean speaking guy on a team of like 4 guys who are speaking English who with questionable prospects of international success. So it's not that appealing. But if you remove the import rule entirely, and obviously there's some nuance here because we don't know what form the import rule would actually take. But if you removed it entirely, you could literally just bring a full, like pretty high level team over. Like maybe you're not bringing Damwon over straight up, but we literally saw this in 2014. Like there was a team of 5 Korean players who were like top of or close to the top of their game who are ready to come over right before the rule, right? So I disagree. I think there's more money here, and I think one of the few barriers to keeping a superstar from coming over would be removed, in that they'd have like a group of their compatriots from Korea who could just come over. They don't need to adapt to the local environment. They get paid, and they can make it to Worlds probably more easily. I think they would come over, and I think they would have better international results, straight up. Now, would they win Worlds? Probably not. Like, I think still the top Chinese or Korean team is probably going to be better, just because top to bottom, the entire league is going to probably be more stacked. But there would be marginally better results. I don't think it would be worth it, though.
I think I land somewhere in the middle. Overall, I agree with Syndro's point about like it's not going to make a huge difference, because I think that's what he led the take with, and it would hurt NA talent development for sure as well when there's just less opportunities. You know, and talk about discouragement on the ladder and all the knock-on effects from not being believed in and having opportunities. I think that would be significant. I also somewhat agree that I don't think we would ever get the top tier as a full team. Probably like take the Griffin situation that happened, where it's like that team was imploding. You know, I'm sure a lot of people were reaching out to Griffin. And maybe in this world where we have the money to outbid some other teams, and like you're saying, that all 5 get to come over together would be a big incentive for why they would be able to stick together. But I feel like what would be more likely would be like we would be the option for the team that's not currently the super team. So like SKT is going to have some nutso, like everyone wants to play with Faker team. There's going to be some Chovy team, maybe some Showmaker team, and most of them will probably stay. And you might get one of those teams. You might get like the third one, and which is still a good lineup, you know. And like you're saying, would probably be better internationally than some of the teams currently do right now. But it wouldn't be significantly better, and they would still fall behind because now they're playing in a worse environment, as we've already highlighted. So like, I don't think even if you do, even in the good case scenario where Syndro's wrong and I'm kind of wrong, and you are able to get like the second best Korean team, basically, they're still going to probably struggle with a lot of the infrastructure things that are currently not up to par right now in NA.
Yeah, and the story gets worse if this rule is removed globally, right? Because again, if China also has no import rule,
then we're losing that bid war.
Yeah, like.
Well, you say that, but if there's a salary cap on them, and not on us.
Oh, true. I don't know how high the salary cap is, and I don't know
and the other thing is,
but yeah.
Here's what you're forgetting, Primal. China's also good. They want an easy path to Worlds at the end of the year. So that's the one thing that kind of happened with the WCS situation, I think, from my understanding of StarCraft scene. I'm not as in on it as people like Azale and yourself probably. But, you know, if you didn't think you were going to win the Korean seeds for WCS, you went to and competed in the NA tournament. And, like, I think that's kind of what you would see some of those teams who are like, oh, I'm not sure if we can beat this iteration of SKT. Let's go hop over there and try and snipe one of their spots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the issue I was getting to is when you open the floodgates, that means you're pretty much going to have close to, if not actually, 10 teams of 5 imports. And then how do you convince these upcoming teenagers and young adults to practice League of Legends, you know, hours and hours a day to become pros? Not only do we delete like native talent from the LCS, but we delete NA talent development and the concept of it.
Well, I think, you know, one of the things I really want to sort of riff off is we were talking a lot about LPL and LCK players, but what does not sound crazy to me is this. We've heard from, I think I saw the headline. I admittedly did not watch the video or the article because I'm like your average Redditor. I don't. But supposedly Perk said that Yankos wants to come to NA. And so, like, is it that crazy to see like, let's say import rule got lifted right now. Is it that crazy to imagine a world where Jack is like, well, thank you, Blabber. I've now sold you to another team for $1 million, and I'm going to use that money to fund bringing Yankos over. And then 2 years later, you know, or a year later or something like that, like Mickey X's contract comes up, and you just, like, like, it's actually not that crazy. We've had such insane roster rumor stories and like all this stuff happen that you could imagine a world where you just rebuild like G2. Obviously I don't think they'd have the success that they did you know, years later. Maybe they would, no disrespect to those players, but you could imagine a world where you start to kind of rebuild some of these teams as contracts expire over the course of like a 2 to 3 year period, which I think is very funny.
Yeah. Sorry, one point I think I don't know if we really properly addressed, Syndro, is your point about NA talent development over the long term. This absolutely kills NA talent development over the long term. Like, just to be super clear, you're absolutely right about that. I think if you're a team owner, and again, I don't want to put words in team owners' mouths, but because no good words have been coming out of most of their mouths, I'm gonna make up some words for them. If you're on the extreme view and you really just want a no import league, you don't honestly, like, you probably don't care that much about investing in NA talent because you can get cheaper talent from EU, China, and Korea.
But
right? Like,
I do just want to point out that the owners, all like Steve and Jack, both said they would want to invest
sugar
more. They wouldn't want to do this.
Go down the medicine, go down.
Look, I agree with you, Mark. I think it's really weird to say that you feel like you can't win with NA talent the way it is, but you also want to invest. I just wanted to be fair, and so like they are like to be honest, like that is what they said.
I think we're strawmanning a little bit. Like, what I'm saying is, if you want no import rule, you can't also say that I also want to develop NA talent. It just doesn't make any business sense. Like, take all that money.
Well, they're saying it. So that's what I'd say. Hitstreak in the chat says that he didn't say it. For those that did not watch my video, both of them said that they would like to see, if this was a rule, they'd like to see some sort of like requirement that teams invest in North American talent more. I think Jack even listed the idea of like orgs holding their own little tournaments for like amateur and academy teams.
Steve mentioned like a tax you had to pay or something potentially. Like if you're going to use X amount of import slots, you had to do something. I think I wasn't quite exactly sure what he was saying, but like some idea around that.
Yeah,
that
like
line.
both of them said that they would want to see both the import rule lifted, but then also further investment into the amateur and academy side. Now, whether or not that makes sense, I just want to be fair to them. That's what they said.
I mean, that sounds like go ahead.
Sorry, to be fair, I don't think Steve ever said it should be completely removed. He said it's archaic, right, and we should revisit it. But I don't think he was saying no import rule. Jack, I feel like, was saying no import rule. And they were both saying we should invest more money in NA talent development. But
it also depends where and when they said these things, because like there's been multiple shows and interviews over the last 3 years where people have said different things. So. I'm not sure where the latest thing of what each of them are saying is too. And like, you know, maybe they do want, like, it is true that you theoretically on a business level, yes, you would just go for like the easiest way to success, which is probably be finding, if you have the money to do it, top talent from other regions. But you would also want to hypothetically develop your own talent too, to have the richest pool of talent to pick from. But realistically, what would happen would be, the big dogs would pay the fine, limp it out there. We've seen them do this with Academy already. Like for the first 2 years of Academy, teams hated it. Teams thought it was a joke. I know for a fact that teams were like, I don't want to do Academy. I'm forced to do it. You know, like they did not take development seriously. So I can't imagine with a full import rule lifted that any restrictions that they're imposed upon, you know, that Steve doesn't just pay that fine, eat it, and then go keep playing with his shiny toys.
Yeah.
And Mark, I mean, I'm curious to get your perspective as someone who is on the team side of this. Like, in a completely free market where there's no rules around NA talent, okay, even if you want to develop new talent, wouldn't you just develop new talent that you imported anyway?
Like, I mean, that was one of the things that even TSM kind of set outright, was that we would want. We're a global org. We want to find talent where it exists. Presumably, you're scouring every ladder, then, not just the NA ladder.
Yeah.
Hey, Syndro, thank you so much for calling in. Sorry we don't have more time to talk, but you know, Mark and I rambled for too much in the beginning. Yeah. Is there anything you want to say before we go on, like shouting out any amazing authors?
Yeah, finish book 3, Patrick Rothfuss. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but you know what? I believe it.
I think you can say it. Thank you so much, Syndro, for the call. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Thanks, Syndro.
All right, on to Primal. I forgot you are also a
you tweeted.
Reader. Yeah,
I'm a book guy.
Yeah.
What's up next for you?
I'm thinking of reading The Expanse. So right now I'm on a nonfiction like Eastern philosophy kick, but I've been looking for good fiction because sometimes it's just kind of heavy reading. So I think The Expanse. It's gonna be a sci-fi or fantasy book for my next fiction book.
Of course.
Yeah.
Why would it be anything
The only
else?
thing I read.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna grab the next caller. Mark is off to grab them. Some quick shout outs to Danny Grimm. I think I already got Judek, the Fritz, Smoke Dog, and Dank Memes. Oh, did I miss some back here? I hope I didn't. Amory Hin, Smiles Indie, Diving. I think I'm all caught up on the subs because nobody has subbed in a while because people hate me. Okay, we got. Okay, wait. How do I say your name? Because I want to make sure I don't.
You say it Cheongseolmo.
Okay.
Wow, you helped him.
Chong, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from New Jersey.
New Jersey. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take is that Dignitas is going to finish over TSM and EG, but still behind the top three of 100 Thieves, Team Liquid, and Cloud9.
What? We're going to talk about an actual team in the league?
Holy shit! What is this about the import rule?
I mean, I had an idea for an import rule, but like we did that a lot. Mine was about LMG back in 2014, but that's what
Dude, this is my take on Dignitas, and we'll definitely get to your point. Dignitas totally should be like, we're the fucking North American Team America for the Americans team. Like they need to get,
problem is Golden Guardians did that, and then they had to make a roster change like the next split, and people flame them endlessly for like just betraying. Like once you do that, I feel like you have to hard commit.
Dude, like they're not gonna win a split. Like let's be honest. Like just commit now. You know, and rake in the good branding, man. You could be a good middling.
Get some red on those yellow jerseys. Get some red right here. Yeah.
I mean, they deleted the no imports tweet, and we don't know why, but perhaps because they're like, actually, maybe it would be nice to. Anyway, okay, so sorry, go ahead and elaborate on your dig hype take.
So, I mean, if we're on the topics of imports, Dig has 0 imports. And they already proved that they can beat TSM through letting them draft a strong bottom lane like TSM has been playing towards with Lost and Sword Art. In that draft, they played more of a comfort style thing, letting Saligo get his Azir. But just the way that they played against TSM just shows that they know what is good for them and how to punish teams who draft poorly, because like that Lulu pick was not it. But I still think they'll finish behind Cloud9 100 Thieves and Team Liquid because even though TL is in a weird spot right now, they did just beat Cloud9 this weekend, so they still look like they're finally getting their gel together. And it's still clear that Cloud9 is and 100 Thieves, even though they slipped up this weekend, are probably easily those are the top 3 teams.
Primal, what do you think?
Damn, this is the part where I'm gonna get flamed. So I don't think beating TSM makes you a contender for #1. So I agree with you that they are still below that top 3. Dignitas, like I still think my favorites for top 3 are Cloud9, 100 Thieves, TL. Maybe one of them doesn't actually end up top 3 because of like their draw on the bracket or whatever. But yeah, I guess I'm saying I agree, and I think if you're looking at Dignitas beating TSM as like a sign as like the contender, you're kind of griefing yourself. So
why are you guys all dismissing TSM? Haven't they popped off recently? I mean, I get it when we were being dismissive of them 2 weeks ago, but
no, I think TSM's good, man. But I also think they're like their team. I think I power ranked them at like #4, which is obviously not bad, but I still don't think they have like a super distinct play style. I don't think they're great early game. I think TL is like kind of just figuring stuff out right now, and they're gonna be online. I think C9 is still clearly better. 100 Thieves is a little bit more questionable, like in a meta where they don't have the ability to pick mid lane that can roam to side lanes, like TF or Galio and stuff like that. They might struggle versus TSM. I can see TSM being top 3. I think it's really hard for me to see them at #1. So TSM's good. Like I don't hate TSM. I think they look great. I'm super happy they're doing well, but they're not in my mind a favorite to win the split yet.
If you disrespect Dignitas right now, you get hate threads. Dom and LS didn't believe on Crackdown, or I think it was, I don't know, whatever.
They have like 5 shows. It's hard to keep track of them.
Face check or something? I don't know.
Oh, maybe it's face check. God, I'm so bad at keeping up with names. Either way, they were like, God, they don't put any respect in Dignitas. They think they're going to suck. I mean, I think Dig's good. I think they're better than a lot of the teams below them in the standings. Like, I don't think the fact that they're up here is necessarily a fluke. So in that regard, I totally agree that they're better than Fly. They're better than CLG, Golden Guardians, better than Immortals. Like, I think they're good, but I don't see the ceiling continuing to grow to the point where it's like, and there goes Sligo in a best-of-5 series, 5th pick, red side, counter pick, game 5 in the finals, just shut down Gents. Like, do you see that happen? Like, I like that kind of stuff I just don't see happening.
Dude, I'm so ready for this clip to show up in a fucking YouTube video.
Dude, I can't wait for that actually
import analyst.
Yeah.
And they just cut my audio on top of like Sligo dumpstering Jensen.
Dude, that would be hype. Like,
that'd be the best.
Like, let me say this. This is the thing when you have a fucking opinion about the performance of a team, people are like, oh, they'll go back. Like, once a team gets an upset, it's like, oh, you fucking suck. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, I'm gonna ask you right now, if you had to put money on something, what would you predict? And I bet everyone would have the predictable C9, TL, 100 Thieves, top 3, right? So if it's actually when something's actually on the line, you're going to make the safe pick.
I mean, you discount how many TSM fans would, again, say TSM. Like, I bet you a lot of TSM fans would say TSM's going to win.
Well, so maybe they're just so ride or die that like, they're willing to lose money for TSM. Great.
And I can see a world where, like, maybe Dig does have a better run than TSM specifically. Maybe. Yeah. I wouldn't bet on that personally, but I said for TSM it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, I expect. So like this is kind of in line with my expectation for them. But maybe they falter and they stagnate and they don't actually get better. And they won some games in the middle of the split playing Azir and Shen and Pantheon, you know, like who knows where it goes from here. But I think that they have some really good players on that team, and I would expect TSM to shape up a little bit more.
I have been covering this shit for so long. I am no analyst, but how many times have I been like towards the beginning of the split been like, oh wow, Dig actually looks really good, and I think I said this last week too. I've been burned too many times to have faith in this team. Okay, there's always a period of time where Dignitas at one point in time looks really good. If they want to like shake up the narrative and shake up like how things normally go, then that's great. Go like kick ass and do fantastic and then show up in playoffs or whatever. But I just like, I don't trust anymore. You know, it's happened so many times.
And for us, it's a win-win. Like I get to predict what I think, which is that Dig is not going to beat any of the top 3 teams in a best-of-5 series and playoffs. That's my prediction. And if I'm wrong, it's fucking hype. Like, I'm not sad either way. Either I'm right or it's hype.
Yeah.
And plus, no matter what, someone's going to be pissed off. So you might as well say what you actually think.
Yeah.
So true. All right. Thanks for the call, my friend Chong. Is there anything that you want to say before we go on to the next caller?
Yeah, I want to shout out Primal. I've loved seeing you on the cast. You've been doing a great job. Shout out to Mark Z and the whole casting team. And also shout out Game Fuel. Been drinking that since it came out.
Thank you.
Thanks, homie.
One of the folks that works with them is in the chat right now, and somebody earlier subbed, and actually shouted out Game Fuel with the sub, which was like, it was Purple Ray Q, and they were like, what? People do this? And I'm like, yeah. Welcome to sponsoring my show, by the way.
Wait, Travis, can we talk about literally how I went to the gas station and bought this goddamn Game Fuel and I've been drinking it the whole time and you haven't said anything?
Wait,
Travis
I didn't
did
see
not
that you
ask
were
me to
doing
do
it.
this. This is Game Fuel, bro.
Did you crush it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I get into it.
Of course, crush it. It's so good.
It's so good. I'm so amped.
Game Fuel, crush it. That's the new slogan.
I don't know. That's not their slogan. I want to be clear here. We're not. Actually, you know what? Let's just screw it. I mean, we were going to do this every episode, but let's just do it. You're the Game Fuel victory caller. Congratulations. I don't want to teach people that they can just shout out Game Fuel to get it, but congratulations to Chong. You're the Game Fuel victory caller for tonight. I will message you. For those that don't know, if you win the Game Fuel victory call as a segment, we send you a case of Game Fuel. So I'll hit you up with the details on how to get that. But congratulations, Chong.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Have a good one, guys.
Okay.
You too, man.
Well, why not? You know what? Why not just take the break and since we're already talking about Game Fuel, let's just take a break and shout them out. Shout out to Game Fuel for sponsoring the show. We've had them with us for a couple of weeks now. Even Primal went and picked up Game Fuel. Had you had it before, Primal?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to ask you your opinion because if you don't like it, I don't want you to say that.
I'll tell you after broadcast.
Okay. One way or another. But let's just all say that he liked it. Listen, I really like it. Mark is showing his cats. Mark was just drinking one at the very beginning. If everyone could do me a favor and go to gamefuel.com. Actually, I think if in Twitch chat we have a link which you guys can use, which I just pulled up with the command !gamefuel. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also click the link in the description. That would be fantastic. So I want to address a couple things. One, we've had sorry, I almost said a bad word during a sponsored segment. We've had a bunch of people who have tweeted at Gamefuel and at me and been like, yo, I'm trying this. I'm trying it. I tried this flavor, or I got the whatever. That stuff is awesome. And a lot of you are buying it through gamefuel.com, which is really cool because, as I discussed last week, you have the Victory Pass, which is like this cool battle pass system where you can rank up and get all these different rewards and all that. You can also use code Travis to save 5%. But some of you, listen, they're working on it right now. But I'm gonna be candid here. I'm gonna go off script and say, yes, as some of you might notice, there are a couple places in the U.S. that they don't ship to yet. I know they are working on it, but in the meantime, I have an Amazon link that is on that Nightbot thing. If you do !! Game Fuel, and hopefully I'll remember to tell my editor who handles the show to put this up on the YouTube thing as well. But if you, for instance, go to the Game Fuel site and you're like, wait, they don't ship to my state, again, I know that they're working on trying to expand that. You can also use the Amazon link, and if you do that, it is trackable and it helps me out. So if you want to help us out, try some Game Fuel. You can do it over at gamefuel.com. But again, if for some reason it's not popping up, try that Amazon link, and that is helpful too. But we want to thank Game Fuel so much for sponsoring the show. It's been great to have them come on as a partner. It's been really fun over the past couple of weeks, and the reception from all of you has been fantastic. So as always, it's very appreciated.
Travis, is it feline friendly? Because my cat could definitely use a Game Fuel right now.
I am in no way whatsoever going to talk about whether or not people should feed this sponsor product to their animal. That seems like I would be opening myself up to legal
loss of sponsorship, getting sued.
Yes.
What wouldn't you get in trouble for?
Nice try, Mark. Anyway, let's go ahead and grab the next caller.
Alrighty.
Off Mark goes. Oaksilk gave 5 subs. Thank you to having him on. Some people earlier were accusing Oaksilk of being a little long-winded whenever he first called in, and now some of you probably have subs, so I hope you feel guilty. Zex Volts, thanks for the Prime. CoreUser Twitch gifted a sub. Chris Million, Prof Plum 67, Hit Streak with the 5 gifted subs. Thank you, Hit Streak, Jesse. Bakeray and Popeye Plays Games, Nabsy, On the Hook, Ladder Slider. Thank you all. We got Kekikaze. Is that how you say it? What's that? Sorry,
Kekikaze.
Kekikaze.
Have you not watched Naruto?
No, I have not.
I'm a Kazi, but with a kek instead of yami.
Kekikaze.
Kekikaze.
Okay.
Kekikaze.
Is it like Kokage or like Hokage? Isn't that a thing
No,
too?
Ignore me. Just
I think
I was
isn't
being
that
even
also a
dumber than
Naruto
you.
term?
I one-upped you.
Okay. What do you? Where are you calling from, Kek?
I'm calling from New Jersey.
New Jersey. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take was that if 100 Thieves continue playing or drafting how they are right now, they won't be top 3 NA by Worlds. Bot will probably fall into the hands of a team like TSM or maybe IMT. But this is only if they are playing like how they are currently. They can change.
Well, are we using currently as their loss against Golden Guardians, a team that had only gotten 1 victory before?
No.
Before that?
Doesn't really have much of an impact. Just like the manner in which they drafted and tried to play the games. Yes, the Golden Guardians has an influence over it, but in every other game, they're also trying to go for the same exact type of style.
By the way, just to be clear, you said they'll fall to TSM or a team like IMT, right? Did you see Immortals?
Yeah, Immortals. Yeah.
Okay.
Immortals
I feel like you're hiding your. I feel like that might be more interesting.
Immortals take.
Yeah, it's just like a Trojan Horse Immortals take.
I think Immortals has the highest skill cap of any of the other teams besides TSM that could also be contending with the third place spot because is showing
you're breaking up a little bit, Keck. So maybe we'll. It's okay. It's probably connection issue on your end. Why don't we just go ahead and go off of your initial take, and hopefully your internet will improve before we come back to you. But what do you guys think of this? 100T, how they've been playing?
I'm sad that the caller's thing's a little shisty because I would like to hear what he meant specifically with the way they've been drafting, because that could mean a lot of things.
The way they've been drafting and playing is a lot as it's using their cohesiveness as a team that has had experience together to their advantage, which is useful and good. However, the fact is that they're relying on this and their mechanics too much, and they're drafting team comps that if they fall behind, if they don't manage to get such a huge advantage as they have been getting, they will most likely lose games because the other teams, as LCS progresses into summer, will become better and better as well. So it'll be harder to find these advantages that 100 Thieves is finding right now. For example, in their game against TSM, where they drafted Syndro, Nidalee, Senna Jace, and Tom Kench, their team has no real way to contend with TSM in the later parts of the game, except for arguably Senna. And the fact is that they will need to find ways to get advantages, but in summer it's not guaranteed that they will find these advantages against good teams. And so when it comes to playoffs where it becomes best of 5, teams will probably be able to prep in order to stop this extreme aggression.
I think that kudos for having an interesting take. I actually think this is an interesting take. So just to summarize, you're basically saying, hey, if 100 Thieves does not draft in the way that they historically have, which is basically Demonte on roaming mid laners and running globals and stuff, if they stay in this style that they're doing with control mages, they will not be top 3 by end of the year, is what you're saying, right?
I don't think the mid pick has too much of an influence, just their overall style, because they're trying to push into wave 3 and then dive either top or bot a lot of the times. And so if Demonte is on a mage or is on a roaming champion, the same exact things will happen. So it's not actually really what Demonte is playing. I think the team will be better if Demonte is not on a mage, but instead on a roaming champion. But it'll be roughly the same.
Got it. Mark, you want to go first, or should I?
Oh, I'm interacting with Twitch chat because everyone's saying this is an LS take, and I was like, huh? How is this? And I don't know.
Right. Keck, are you an LS viewer?
I think I heard LS say this before, but LS wants them to draft extremely safe and precautious.
But
I'm not saying to draft extremely for the scaling game. That's the only way to win. But I'm saying that the ways that they're trying to really take advantage of just dives on wave 3 and such is not going to work in summer.
Okay, let's put Keck on pause so that we can.
Yeah,
it is a little rough. But what do you guys think of all this?
Overall, I agree with the fact that 100 Thieves has not been particularly impressive, and I think you can point potentially to some of their playstyle things as well as draft. They haven't had as much global playmaking as some of their earlier comps, and teams kind of just ban TF, and that's about it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. And then Demonte has been playing more control mages. He's played a lot of Orianna this split, as well as some Syndro and stuff, and it just doesn't look as good as when he's on these playmakers, which is kind of the opposite of what the take is, I think, from LS and the caller, which is like, hey, they need to get better at playing slower and safer as opposed to forcing dives with these champs that aren't actually that great at it potentially. Whereas I would say, like, I would rather them find the champs that enable them to continue playing the way that they want to play anyways. So that is still concerning, given the fact that the meta is about to change with the jungle. It's going to have less scaling in it with XP and gold nerfs. And so CoreUser, who plays Talia and Olaf a lot, like, is probably not going to be as great. I guess Olaf's probably fine because he doesn't actually care that much. He just wants to be an early game powerhouse. But either way, I would like to see them say, okay, forget the Syndro, forget the Orianna. I like the set mid. I like the global champs. I would love to see what else they can potentially find that allows for easy roaming from mid lane to continue going for these aggressive dives early. And I agree that you can't just be super telegraphed, like build a wave and dive, because people can tell, like, they're building a wave and you can get the jungler down there and get your TPs ready. So overall, I agree that if they don't figure out how they want to approach the game, right now it feels like they're in a bit of an in-between, that they could very easily get overpassed by some of these other teams. But I don't know if I agree with the way you want to see them change.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think even with the meta shift, I still think there are champions that they can continue to pick. Like, let's say we go to a meta where Echo mid is like more dominant, for example. That's a pick that Demonte played on Golden Guardians last year, and the team was like relatively successful on it with not having someday top. So I don't think they should change like the fundamental archetype of how they play, which is like Demonte roams and they make plays side lane. Like, I think they're good at it. I don't think there's a good reason to deviate from it. That said, like, I don't know if LS made this point, so maybe I'm sure someone in chat can link the clip or whatever. But if the point is that, like, hey, they shouldn't do this like super predictable dive at like minute 6 every single game. Yeah, I think that's a super solid take, right? You don't want to have a set play that you make every single game and everyone knows that you're going to do it. Like, that's the reason why even if you're CLG and you're known for making level 1 play every game, you don't make the same level 1 play every game, right? But I don't think they need to drastically like re-architect how they play in terms of the roles that each player serves in the team in order to place top 3. And part of the reason I have 100 Thieves rated like as a top 3 team, at least for this split, is just because of player caliber. I think they have really good players in all 5 positions. And even if you want to argue that, like, I don't know, Demonte's only situationally good, I still think that counts. I don't think he's going to be in a situation where he can never get on some of his core picks for the rest of the year. And I think the only team besides C9 and TL who has players of the same pedigree, or not pedigree, caliber, is probably TSM, right? So I could see TSM overtaking them, but a lot of these other teams, I honestly just don't think without roster moves or just like a massive overperformance or like incredible growth from a set of development players, just has the quality of players to surpass 100 Thieves. But yeah, of course, if they maintain a super rigid style and make super predictable plays every game, absolutely going to fall off a cliff.
One thing I'd throw in there too as well, when you brought up like the quality of players, FBI and Someday are actually really, really good in team fights. And so maybe more to LS's and the caller's point, if you want to slow the game down and play around late game, they actually do have decent personnel for it. I'm a little less convinced of CoreUser and Demonte in traditional front-to-back team comps. And it's not just, I know people are going to harp on Demonte, but I'd also throw CoreUser in there. I don't think he's bad at team fighting by any means, but he definitely wants to be ahead of the game pace so he can kind of be the aggressor in team fights. And I don't know if he's, I haven't seen him have to play a style yet where it's like, okay, you're kind of just primary engage and you're not an actual threat yourself. Like, I always feel like CoreUser wants to be a threat too. So like, I think if you can find things that still work together with your mid jungle quite well, I actually would love to see them keep playing this play style. But I do think, FBI is a fucking monster. Like, he's so good in team fights and stuff. And Someday is legitimately a great tank player. I don't want to see him on tanks, but like, shit, the Jace game didn't look good. I don't know. I'm open to the idea, but it's just not some of their players' strengths. And I don't think you would be well serviced to adopt that play style when you can do the other one.
Yeah. And sorry, someone made the point in the chat that EG, I left out EG. EG is really good, or rather has really good players who I think can beat anyone in a best of 5 on a good day, but I don't think they're favored in a best of 5 versus the top 3 teams. but EG is good too.
What do you think of this caller? Kek.
I think this is like the points are fine. Yeah. I also think that they should also continue to be focusing more on their own individual style, which is this more of a roam heavy and like playing cohesively as a team. I'm not saying that they should be trying to change into like they should strictly change into just a team fighting team that scales for late game, like old versions of Team Liquid or such. Which so yeah, so it's just basically they shouldn't try to keep going for these telegraphed plays and just shouldn't be trying to be too overly aggressive, because some of the plays that they make, even for the sake of being aggressive and trying to get edges, are like they don't need to make these plays to get edges.
I mean, I guess I'm with you, Kek. I can't say that seriously. I love your name, man. I'm with you on definitely they need to stop with the set telegraph plays. Absolutely 100%. I'm not with you on they need to completely convert their play style to something more like Team Liquid. At the end of the day,
I didn't say that they needed to. I said they shouldn't convert to a Team
got
Liquid.
it. Okay, sorry.
Like,
sorry.
they should continue playing their style, because that is like what is realistically going to be like their best style, because it's only like it's only a split and a half basically left. So they can't really convert into the Team Liquid type of style within that period of time. So their best goals is just to continue improving on their style, but with caution.
Well, thank you so much, Kek, for the call. Is there anything that you want to shout out before we move on to our last caller?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out twitch.tv/Cloaf. That is twitch.tv/KLOAFE. I think he's in the chat.
Your friend?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much for the call.
What a homie.
Okay. Mark, you want to go grab our
last caller?
Our last caller. Speaking of, I think Cloaf subbed instead of Prime 13 minutes ago. So thank you for the sub and perhaps the shout out. I don't know. Mega Man Music, thank you for the 1 year. Reichster, thank you for the 2 months. And Backlog Bandit, thank you for the 6 months as well. I'm really hoping we have a CLG take for you, Primal. I'm hoping this last one is, because I'm going to be sad for you if you don't. I almost feel like, maybe I'll convince Mark to extend the show a little bit so we can talk about them, because I know.
Talk about who? About what?
Well, let's see. I was going to say I hope we get a CLG take for Primal out of this, but maybe we'll just have to.
Oh, I don't pull CLG takes.
Okay. CoreUser. CoreUser, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Steamboat Springs, Colorado.
Steamboat Springs. That sounds like a fictional place. I really like it.
It's really nice, kind of fictional.
What Disney movie was that from?
Yeah, I know.
Frozen.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Well, what do you want to talk about, Corey?
I wanted to talk about some of the drama between Regi, Jack, and the community on social media. Specifically, just thought some of their reactions were maybe a little much. I think the community has a great asset in having owners that are willing to engage and do so in a non-boring way compared to a lot of traditional sports, but at the same time suggesting that one of the best supports in the league would work at McDonald's if the import rule was gone. And then some of the things that Jack was saying as well, I just thought were kind of, there might be a line there that they crossed. And I think you could kind of see that in the reactions from some of the many of the people in the community, including some people on this call, to that tweet with some incredible memes. So essentially, I feel like the communication around this whole issue has been not amazing from their point of view, not only for the social media part, but also some of the other calls talked about how the owners haven't really been responding very well and clearly to the questions from media like yourself, Travis, around what their take is. They say that maybe they're not very distinct. Some of these people that we're talking about were more clear on what their take was, but I think overall they should be more clear with the community. They owe it to the community. This is a huge issue on what their opinion is. And when they are, I think just a certain level of, understanding that everyone is working towards the same thing and maybe not being quite so harsh towards Vulcan in this scenario, I guess. I think he kind of maybe paid the price for it.
Core,
go ahead.
I have a question for you. In fact, I'm going to write a couple notes because there was something else that I wanted to talk about as well.
Taking notes on our show now. What's happening?
I know. But Core, I know that I do want to address what you're talking about, which is sort of the status of the stuff. But one of the things that you were saying is that the owner should be more transparent, answer more stuff. I'm actually, for the first time ever, going to ask you for advice. I don't know what to do because the owners and Riot don't want to talk about this stuff, and they seem to be wanting to sweep it under the rug now. I know that if I keep covering this stuff, like it's already starting to happen. People that are watching the show are on my YouTube are getting fatigue around it. And I think that the strategy they are using is let's just bury our heads in the sand and hope that this goes away. So I'm curious, like, what would you like to see from me and other people to try to make sure that the conversation stays around, and like perhaps at some point in time they need to say something without also bringing about like a great deal of fatigue to the people who are like, I've heard this a million times.
Yeah, I don't think I have the answer, but my opinion as just a fan and a member of the community would be, it's a little bit like you could take the strategy of like the GameStop craze and everything, where you have to just keep riding it to the moon the whole way, and certain people are going to fall off the wagon, but that would definitely harm your viewership, to your point. I think the one player in this that, I don't know if you've reached out to them, I assume you have, has Riot given comment on any of this at all? I mean, we've talked a lot about what the owners think about it, but I'd be curious to hear. I think you had put out a potential statement that Riot could put out, but they haven't put out a statement. Is that correct?
No. So the two things that have happened so far is, and so I did a video. People can go check it out. It went up a couple hours before this, where I talked about this. But like, I reached out to them for a statement when I first talked about this on the show like 3 weeks ago, and at the time they said no comment. I reached out to them again on Friday, and admittedly, there's like the weekend and all that stuff, right? But like, there was just no answer to the email. Now I won't even get a no comment. I just get no response, and so that's sort of the thing that is difficult for me. Is like, I don't know. There's almost a sense of, you know, people trying to kind of freeze out the topic so that it'll just hope it'll go away, and I don't know how to address that.
I mean, they kind of have the power in that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna hop back onto like the whole other angle, because Travis is trying to get career advice right now, and I mean,
it's just it's I've never been in the situation before where there's like a standoff between like, well, we're just gonna pretend that this isn't happening, and then I need to cover it, but also people. And so look, Core is like a great person to talk to because obviously he's caring about this stuff, and I'm curious how he would like to see it covered.
I mean, the one thing I'd say is it reminds me a lot of how things generally work in any large organizational system like the government, where you're trying to get a certain bill passed and you don't want to talk about a certain topic. So I'm sure they'll bring up other things like, oh, we'll invest more in NA talent as like a distracting factor, and they're just not going to talk about the rest.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark, you want to go back to his initial question?
Well, yes, I want to go back to some of that stuff, because some people in Twitch chat are like, oh, well, Regi never said he'd work at McDonald's. You know,
I was going to point that out. To be clear, he wasn't like you'd work at McDonald's, but he did say you'd be paying minimum, and I don't know if he meant minimum salary or minimum, like within the LCS rules, or a minimum wage.
Given that I said you'd be out of a job, I'm leaning towards the latter. Not that like all the money would go and you'd be earning minimum. You know, like, who knows exactly what Regi was thinking. But by the way, it's not a good look to be implying that some other person would be earning minimum wage without your money.
And it's also kind of a weird way to use minimum wage earning as an insult too. Like,
yes,
it's very
there's a lot of problems to dig into with that. So like, whether or not he specifically said McDonald's or not is like such a non-factor in the conversation of like, you shouldn't be saying that to other players in the league, as well as the fact I see this repeated a lot, that like, oh, pro players wouldn't have any careers outside League of Legends if, you know, the league folded or something like that. And that might be true for like some of the straight out high school guys, but like quite a few of league pros in North America at least are decently, like, had some decent education before, it seems like, either in collegiate or what.
Or they went out to go get working at game companies are also people go get jobs.
A lot of them are programmers or have some sort of tech experience, which is usually a pretty good industry to fall into if you have to. Like someone told me this, I don't know how true this is, but apparently Blabber was like at some like Microsoft coding seminars shit when he was like 18. Lemonation is like another example of someone who's had a career. Like I don't think that this is, I mean, if you really want to dig into like the socioeconomics of what it takes to go pro in League versus like traditional sports, I just don't think it's really a similar situation at all. Like where people are coming from and stuff.
Yeah, that and I mean, look, it's even if all these guys would be at minimum wage, I'm definitely not saying they are. It's still a shitty thing to like.
It's just out, yeah.
Yeah, it's not relevant. It's kind of classist. It makes it sound like working on minimum wage is like makes you a lesser person or something. Like it was just a shitty take. I do appreciate that these owners are in the community and like Jack's jumping on Reddit and Regi's on Twitter, but I would hope they reflected on that as not one of their prouder moments. Right. And again, like for me, the whole issue here is like, okay, great. They're willing to communicate on these topics, but they're not willing to like communicate in a more premeditated and intelligent fashion. And that's what we actually need. Not like random Reddit comments here and there, not random Twitter takes that are attacking people. So I mean, we just need a higher level of discourse around this across the board.
I echo a lot of what you guys are saying, where it's like it's nice that a lot of look. I would rather have a Jack than an Ari. Ari, a lot of you guys probably don't know at all because he's the guy that runs Immortals, and like you never hear or see from this person. Maybe there's reasons for that, right? Maybe it's like, oh, we want to put out like our Mike, who is their GM. I think GM. Maybe he's head of competitive or something a little higher. I like Mike a lot, but like. I think it is disappointing when other owners aren't there. But to your point, Primal, like I wish that Regi would have had a good conversation about it. TSM actually the only team that did not have an executive in the media conferences, right? Like it's disappointing to see the lack of like these owners are usually great at engaging with the community, having fun. On Hotline League, we had Regi and Steve do like a challenge a couple years ago. That was a questionable underneath league rules, but like a bet on stuff. Like there are ways in which these owners can come out and have great conversations with the community. They can appear on these shows. They can do these interviews, and it's just disappointing that right now we're seeing like the weirdness around this instead.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not like I want different levels of transparency. I overall like the league owners or some of the CEOs and stuff, how close they are to the scene and how accessible they are and transparent. But it's also, to Kaizen's point, like, hey, that's not good behavior. And I think you can just point out when that's like, hey, that's not a line you should be crossing right now. Like, that's different than saying, oh, I think owners need to pull back and have PR teams checking their tweets and stuff. Like, I don't want that. That's not my point. Just that, like, that was a bad instance of, like, what can happen.
People in Twitch chat pointing out Bjerg is an owner. That doesn't mean he's an executive. Just because he has shares in the company doesn't mean that he's part of the executive leadership of the company. Maybe he is.
Yeah, we all
never
GameStop.
described him that way.
Yeah, I'm an owner. I'm a GameStop owner. I'm the owner.
Exactly.
So, no, I appreciate the call, Core, because I think it is good that places like this show, people can say like, hey, don't represent the league by publicly going in on players on other teams and saying that they would be paid minimum wage. It's just like not a good look. It's just, I don't know. It's embarrassing.
And also, by the way, shout out to Vulcan for handling it like an absolute champ.
Yeah.
He completely flipped it into a meme. It was great. So good resilience.
Primal, feel free to dodge this question like an owner answering one of my questions. But do you think Regi gets fined for that?
Ooh, damn. I mean, I just don't know how they run league ops now. I think back in the day, I think that's a finable offense, right? Like, it's like incredibly denigrating comment going after a player as a person. it's certainly conduct unbecoming. But this is just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Certainly
I
not
understand.
representing Riot, but I mean, it's always tricky because with this kind of stuff, like you do have to have really hard grounds, right? Because it's subjective. Like, does this cross a line? So maybe it doesn't technically cross a line. But yeah, I think this is the kind of thing that you would want to look at, and at minimum have a conversation like, hey, look, this is not how we want our owners talking to anyone, let alone a player in the league.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Core, for the call. I really appreciate it. Is there anything you want to say on the way out?
Just want to thank you guys, longtime listener, first time caller. Appreciate the good work you do, and thanks to the sponsors. Primal, you're a beast. Keep it up.
Oh, thanks, Core.
Yeah, have a good one. Hey, Mark, I know we're over time. But
all right, so what is it?
2 things I really want to get through. One is, I wish the Players Association was saying anything on this. I know like maybe people are fatigued of this. They can stop listening now. But one thing that has happened is, I reached out to the Players Association for an interview, and I was told, like, hey, we're going to figure out if we want to do this interview, but we're going to put out a statement regardless. Since then, I've been told that they made the decision not to put out a statement and not to do the interview. So they're just going to be completely silent on a situation that like, if the Players Association has no public stance on this, what is this group going to stand for at all? People can go watch this interview that I did with DeMonte. I think I'll probably post it live tomorrow, but I was streaming it earlier today, where he kind of just laughs at the Players Association, and he, sorry, I shouldn't say he's laughing at them, but I ask him, he had said, I'm a player, what can I do about this? And I'm like, well, what about the Players Association? And he kind of laughed about it and said, like, I don't know what's going on with the Players Association. So
Which player laughed? Sorry, I missed that at the beginning.
DeMonte.
Oh.
So
I love DeMonte, man.
Well, like, I requested an interview with him. I think one thing that also I feel really, really uncomfortable with is the fact that Vulcan tweeted this weekend and said, like, oh, I wasn't asked about this on the broadcast, and I had, like, a whole big answer to talk about it. Now, I'm not surprised that the LCS broadcast is not asking him about his altercations with Regi or his stance on the import rule, but, like, I also requested an interview with Vulcan, and I unsurprisingly did not receive an acceptance for that through Cloud9. You know, I'm not trying to call it Cloud9 here. I'm just saying, like, the dynamics of this is really difficult, where the players obviously have opinions on this. Obviously, this impacts them dramatically. Vulcan ready to share stuff in an interview, not able to do it. Players Association not making any public statement about it. I just like it's frustrating to me because it just feels like this is a sign of a very unhealthy ecosystem where this would affect, beyond the viewers, the players the most. And there's just no, like, there's just nothing other than brave people like Vulcan, who I do give a ton of credit to, saying something. And also, in the TL AMA today, Santorin said something, Alfari said something, so there are people saying stuff. It's just like, I don't know. It's frustrating.
Who's the head of the Players Association now?
So Darshan is the president, I believe. Hal Biagas was the guy that they had hired to run this stuff. There's some interviews and stuff out there with him. They discontinued their contract with him last year, and so they don't have, like, a non-player person to represent them at this time. I believe they're looking for it. I mean, people can go look at the Darshan interview I did at the end of last year. So, like, I'm not trying to blow up Darshan here. I think he legitimately does care about the players, and I know he's in a tough situation, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not blowing up Darshan, and also he's on C9, right? So he's on C9A, so kind of a compromised position. I mean, first priority should be they need to replace what was his name, Hal? They need to get their outside counsel or whatever a fucking sap. And then this is certainly an issue that should be top of mind for Players Association. Like, what could be more important than the import rule for them? Nothing. That's what.
Figuring out which fast food chains to apply to.
True. I'm partial to Burger King myself. I
would go Jack in the Box. I think I love Jack in the Box.
Oh, do they have like egg rolls at Jack in the Box? Sorry, I feel like I completely undercutting how serious Travis is.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, cool.
So
really fries, man.
I think the other really quick thing is, and I just wanted to throw that out there. But the other thing is like, hey, Primal, how you feeling about CLG?
Damn, dude. All right, so here's the thing with CLG, man. Like,
for those that don't know, Primal's a huge CLG fan. So.
Yeah, I'm a big CLG fan. I think I'm allowed to say that. Whatever. I don't work at Riot anymore. I can say it.
Oh yeah.
So like, I'm a big CLG fan, and like sometimes I ask myself like, why am I like doing the life on hard mode by being a CLG fan? And it's because when you do win, it's like heroin, dude. Like it feels so fucking good when CLG actually succeeds. Like 2015 Madison Square Garden, I will never forget that. Right? 2016 MSI, Dixie popping off internationally, I will never forget that either. So
you must be like the least frequent heroin addict of all time. You're
I guess
never
so.
scoring smacky.
I guess so. I'm always jonesing.
Well, it's so funny because you're like, it's so great. It's so great when they pop off, but they popped off for like 2 years. They like suffered. CLG was suffering until 2015 when the MSG thing happened. Then they did well in 2016, and so it was like almost like a 12-month window.
Well, hold up. How many teams in North America have ever had any success?
No, I know. It's funny to me because it's so good when they pop off, and in my mind, it was so good that those 2 times when they popped off, when they used to pop off, like this organization has done it.
Didn't people wait for like 100 years for the Chicago Bears, whatever the hell that team is, to win?
You're right.
And then it was hype as shit. Yeah. I'm willing to wait a generation for CLG to win again. Okay.
That's the expiration date on your fandom is 1 generation.
1 generation, because at least even if they don't win, I know I was a real one and not a bandwagon.
Is there anything after Zoomers yet? What is the next generation? Or are we still waiting?
But Primal, do you believe in them?
In Zoomers?
No.
no, in CLG this year.
Like, do you think? Okay,
what does believe in them mean?
We're at the halfway point of this split. Like, are they going to get it together? Is Pobe going to come back and save the day? Like, what? Like, I'm just curious because I do think they are an interesting narrative right now in a way that maybe sometimes they're kind of boring. So.
I mean, at this point, there's no way they make playoffs. Sorry. Like, I've already written them off. I'm more looking at summer. I think in summer they can make playoffs with. I think RJS is actually showing signs, like really good signs of having potential. So I think if RJS develops a bit more, if Finn maintains the current level of play that he's showing on Aatrox and just generally speaking as a carry player, even on Ornn he was like getting solo kills, which is kind of cool. And if Turtle maintains his level, even if he's sometimes a little bit in, I could see them making playoffs next split.
Mark, I've been thinking this past weekend about, do you remember the call that we had during the offseason that they said CLG was the bar? Where like for teams like Immortals and Golden Guardians that are taking these bets on new talent, they have to beat CLG in order to prove that it makes sense to actually invest into like rookies and stuff like that, and that they would be the bar, or like if you can pass this, you're good. And boy, having CLG at the bottom of the standings certainly feels like it's better to invest in like Golden Guardians and Immortals talent than in
what? No, I think it's just really unfortunate for CLG that every other team worked out so well.
I guess that's one way of looking at it. All right, cool. This has been a fun episode. It's been really fun. Primal, you've been an amazing co-host and guest on the show tonight, so I really appreciate it. We'll definitely try to get you on if you haven't been burned out after this one.
No, man, this is super fun. I just want to, I'm shilling Travis Gafford on TGI Industries stream. But seriously, man, it's really important to have independent journalism in this space to like have these conversations, right? Like Riot can't really host these conversations. The teams can't. So I'm glad that you've built, along with Mark, an uncancelable platform to have like real conversations about this kind of stuff.
I mean, you say that.
It's really important.
You say that, but the longer I lean on this, we'll see how many interviews I get and how much coverage I get at events and that type of stuff. I do worry about that a little bit. But
I mean, people notice, right? And like this does have an influence on the zeitgeist. So keep going, man.
I really do appreciate that. Well, let's do a round of shout-outs and plugs. Mark, what do you got for us at the end of the episode?
Nothing. Get me out of here.
Really?
What do you think happens in my life every week? Fucking nothing. It's the same shout-outs every week.
Primal, what do you got for us?
Thanks for having me. If you guys want to follow me, just watch the LCS. I guess you can follow me on Twitter. I'm kind of a boomer. I only started using Twitter literally because of this LCS gig.
I know. I saw it. It was so funny. I followed you for a long time.
I don't really fuck with social
media
media like that, man.
Yeah.
I use like Twitter for my job. I use Instagram to flex the girls, and that's it. So anyway, watch me on the LCS. Shout out to Game Fuel, and thanks for watching, guys.
Is that why your Instagram is just pictures of the dog constantly?
I mean, I also love my dog, but it's a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah. I see you. For me, listen, I don't know if I'll be able to get you interviews. Hopefully, I will. But hopefully, I'll continue to have interviews over on my Gyoto Andre spamming your Twitter tag in the chat, Primal. Hopefully, I will continue to have interviews on the channel. But I do have a bunch of stuff hitting the channel around this. We're gonna do a run at looking at, I think, imports versus native talent and how it's done over the years. It might actually not help the case, but we got some stuff in the channel. Thanks everyone for following and watching and all that stuff. And this has been Hotline League episode 161.